got a big show. We got a bunch we're going to get to, including some college basketball. Never too early. Yeah. We got some NFL. We're going to get to college football with our buddy Mike Golic Jr. We're going to be all over the place for the next couple hours. But Claudia, let's start with the World Series last night. We get Game 4, and oh, what a delight it was. The Blue Jays take down the Dodgers 6-2. And I don't know, did we finally learn that maybe, just maybe, Shohei is human? I don't want to over-exaggerate here, but maybe it's possible that Shohei is not a god. He's just a human being.
Yeah, I mean, having to pitch 12 hours after getting on base 9 times. Come on, you're supposed to pitch a shutout game, right? No, that's hard even for the unicorn. So you're right. He's human. He was hit hard. He went 6 innings. 4 runs allowed, which I think anybody else in this position maybe would have done even worse. 4 runs on 6 hits, but the issue was how hard he was hit. Okay, they were swinging, Jason. 5 batted balls, exit velocity of over 100 miles per hour. 8 of them at 99 miles per hour. Vladdy, who we're going to talk about, got a big homer off of him. Shohei's doing something that nobody has done before at such an elite level. You have to think it can't last that long, especially not after playing basically back-to-back games in one night of baseball.
Yeah, that's the hard part about this, is that we expected yesterday that the pitchers would all be a little bit interesting when we got to relief, but we weren't sure how much we could get out of Shohei. And you knew you were going to have to get a lot out of the starters on both sides. You just knew that you were going to have to get as much run out of their arms as you possibly could. And Shohei was good. I mean, he was good, but he wasn't untouchable. And you mentioned Vlad, and Vlad got to him. In fact, they keep running the highlight over and over and over again. Of Vlad's first bat, he gets struck out. His next at-bat, he comes up to the plate, faces the same type of pitch, and boom, just sends it right out of the building. And that's, I think, part of what we have to understand here is that it's not just Shohei's series. These are 2 very good teams with superstars on both sides. This series, in some ways, Claudia, feels to me like it's a legend maker, because we can just say the one word Shohei, no matter where you are, you understand what we're talking about. I feel like Vlad in this process is becoming a share of his own, a one-name wonder that we all turn around and say, that guy, because when you need these wins, you need your stars to be legends, and Vlad, frankly, was legendary last night.
Yeah, I think that's what this series is, which says a lot about these 2 players when you have 2 very talented, deep rosters, specifically with the Dodgers. But it's this matchup. Shohei hadn't allowed a single home run in over 2 months. And then you get to the top of the third. Vladdy gets that sweeper right over the middle of the plate, sends that thing almost 400 feet over the left field to give them the lead. And that's something that Shohei, you could tell. Like, I don't know if anybody out there watches Shohei pitch. Pretty much after every pitch, he has a little smile on his face. He was not smiling after that one. He definitely wanted that one back. And then Ohtani goes to the plate and goes 0-3 with a walk. Still leads the squad in batting average, but clearly doing both is difficult. Vladdy doesn't have to worry about pitching, though. All he has to do is hit. And he does it pretty damn well. He's hitting .419 in the playoffs. An OPS over 1,300. 7 home runs. That's the most in a postseason history for a Blue Jays player. And for those who aren't massive into baseball, an average batting average over the last few years in baseball is around 250. Aaron Judge had the best this regular season at 331. Vladdy's hitting .419 right now, just sub .420. 50 total bases, the most in a 15-game span, tied for the second most in a postseason overall. The way that he's hitting is historical. So the fact that we get Shohei Ohtani, who's going both ways, and Vladdy the way he's hitting, yeah, this is absolutely an instant classic.
Yeah, and that's why this series is shaped up to be so good. It feels like the weirdest part to me in the 2 wins for the Blue Jays is that it's been one explosive inning in each of those. You blink and all of a sudden you think, okay, a lot of runs just came in. And the question is, can the bats get him back into it for the Dodgers side? And particularly if you look at the way Mookie's playing in this series right now, the bats for the Dodgers quietly have gone a little, or loudly, I guess I should say, have gone a little quiet over the last 20 innings, right? So what we're really talking about here is once they were dug into that hole, could they get themselves out of it? And last night, they couldn't. And I feel like it was going to take such a Herculean effort. Like, I'm a video game nerd, right? And so I constantly make the turbo button joke, like, hey, you only have so much turbo button. You hold down the turbo button. When you're out of it, you're out of it. It felt like once they were in the hole last night that they were in, they just didn't have the turbo in the tanks to try and force their way back into this thing, as opposed to most of the series where you felt like, okay, there's still going to be opportunities. You're still going to get runners in scoring position. And you're still going to be able to push people home. That just wasn't the case for the Dodgers last night. It felt like even once they were down 4-2, it was daunting. Once they got down 6-2, it just felt like this thing was over.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's such a mental game, too, as we all know. I do want to give some credit to Toronto's pitching. I think back to the Yankees. There's so much talent in that Yankees lineup. They're a little top heavy, but when they go quiet, when they go cold, they go ice cold. And we saw that through stretches really over the last few years. This Dodgers team, we haven't seen that a ton with. So I don't know if it's necessarily them going cold. I would say it's Toronto's pitching, who I don't know if we gave enough credit to. And by we, I'm really collecting us all in the same bucket. Like, I don't know what you people out there was thinking, but I was certainly thinking that it was going to be all about the Dodgers bats and not so much Toronto's pitching. But Shane Bieber went out there, allowed just 1 run on 4 hits. Chris Bassett went another 2 shutout innings for Toronto. He still hasn't allowed a run this postseason. Their bullpen overall, if you look at it on the postseason, it's not good. It's around 470. But lately, they've allowed just 2 runs in 13 2/3 innings. Is that so much about the Dodgers bats going cold? I don't know. I think it's more of a credit to Toronto's pitching. And of course, in the postseason, you have your starting guys who are able to come out in relief. And that, of course, gives you a massive advantage. The Dodgers lineup to me is just so talented and too consistent from what we've seen in a larger sample size to say maybe they have gone cold. I think they bounce back big in this next game.
I think it's a reasonable expectation. But I wouldn't have expected them to struggle more than the Blue Jays did last night when it comes to making contact.
Sure.
And, I think there is this moment that, I want to give Bieber a bunch of credit for how well he played in this. Absolutely. I feel like, again, I'll go back to Mookie Betts. The number of times we've seen them sort of pitch around Shohei, and they're not worried about Mookie right now. Mookie is cold in this series, and that's, I think, one of the surprise things so far. That being said, I will loudly proclaim I'm glad they pitched to Shohei last night. Like, one thing I think we got to remember is that 24 hours ago, we weren't sure if they were going to. And even leading into the game, a lot of the conversation was, would they just intentionally walk him every single at-bat because he was so hot going into it? You see the chart there. They didn't give him much to swing at, but he did swing. He was struck out twice in this game. I felt like this sigh of relief because what I didn't want to do was have this series suddenly become defined by not letting stars be stars, which was a narrative that was taking over by yesterday afternoon on social media and on some baseball coverage sites. Like, if they walk him, then what does that mean for the future of the intentional walk rule and all of this conversation? Like, conjecture was going nuts 24 hours ago. So weirdly, Claudia, even though it wasn't a great night for Shohei, I found myself relieved that they were actually pitching to him and not just giving up the base every time he was up at bat.
Well, I mean, think about if you're a Toronto fan, too. If you guys end up winning the World Series and you have this massive comeback, everybody's going to come jumping at you and put the little asterisks on there. It's like, the in-game tournament or like the bubble wins in the NBA. Like, they're going to put the asterisks there. Yeah, you won, but it was in the bubble. Yeah, you beat the Dodgers, but you didn't let Shohei Ohtani get any hits because you just walked him every time. Like, Toronto fans don't want that little asterisk, and that's really looking into it. But I do think it's true from a fan side perspective, but also a player. Of course, Shohei he wants an opportunity to go yard because we've seen him do it over and over again, especially in clutch time. So I 100% agree. I was very relieved to see them actually pitch to him. And that gives more credit to the Toronto pitching staff, which I think they do deserve it. Yeah, he's going to make you pay if you're not pitching to him well, and pitch to him well, and then you're going to get all the credit in the world. And they did last night.
I feel like we get game 5 tonight, by the way. A lot of people don't seem to realize that. Back to back to back. They truncate this schedule wildly for the World Series, which is its own conversation of why. I mean, I don't know, like, the one sport that needs arms to rest constantly in between outings, and that's not what they're giving us the opportunity for. But I don't think you can get more back up against the wall than the Dodgers are in this matchup. And to be clear, in my mind, they got to win game 5 to have any shot to win the rest of the series. 1/6 of the country of Canada watched the first 2 games of the World Series. A sixth of the entire nation, right? Like, you start talking about going back to Toronto, needing to sweep both games in Toronto to get yourself a World Series championship in that environment against that team in that country. They're going to be people from Vancouver that are getting their way over to Toronto just to try and celebrate the possibility of a World Series championship. That place is going to be a zoo for Game 6 and Game 7. That environment is going to be overwhelming. It's going to be like Taylor Swift touring in front of Taylor Swift with Taylor Swift opening with Taylor Swift and Michael Jackson in his prime all at once. Like, the world is not ready for the chaos that's about to hit Toronto. I just think the Dodgers, to have any shot to win this series, have to win tonight.
Michael Jackson and Taylor Swift. I can't imagine what that concert would look like. And we will break down that game, I know, later in the show. I do think the Dodgers get the win. I think they bounce back. The bats look better. I like Snell. I have another stat for you that I knew you loved yesterday. In the best of 7 series, Jason, tied at 2-2, the Game 5 winner has also won the series over 67% of the time. I have that for you, our little ESPN stat of the day. But another stat for you. The Blue Jays lead all teams in home runs in the playoffs, okay? They have the most go-ahead homers while trailing in the postseason. This playoffs, teams to out-homer opponents are 27-5. I know you like those stats.
That is an amazing. Here's the thing. When we get to break, I'm gonna text a buddy that I love very much that is part of that stats and info group that comes up with these things. Here's what I want to know. What are the stats for a team that wins Game 3 but loses Game 5, or vice versa? I'm curious, because yesterday's stat was, win Game 3 and you win 67% of the time. Win Game 5, you win 64% of the time. Well, what about the converse of this? Like, what happens if you win one or lose the other? Like, what do we do when these two worlds collide? And I don't know, Claudia. I don't know what to make of any of that. Like, there is some reality of just asking somebody, because you said yesterday when we were talking about this series moving forward that it would be tough for the Blue Jays to win enough games remaining. So now that we are where we are, a best of 3 series, do you believe that the Blue Jays will win the World Series?
I don't. I think the Dodgers come back. I think they get the win tonight. I think the bats heat up again. I don't know how long Mookie's going to stay cold. At first, before this series started, I said, like, now is the time to jump on Toronto. And I have to check what the price is to see. But of course, last night, it's not going to be as good. So I think that the time, if you were to jump on the Toronto bandwagon, was before. Like, if you had faith in Toronto, you were with them from the beginning. You ride it out till the end. I've said since the start of the season that the Dodgers were the best team in baseball, the best roster. They had the best vibe, the best charisma. And they were the most consistent. I've said that from the start of the season. I'm going to ride that out. I think the Dodgers finish this thing.
All right, we'll break down Game 5 later in the show because I've got some interesting stats of myself that we're gonna put out there for everybody later in the show. But coming up next, let's get to some superstar interviews. Claudia had the chance to talk to Ashton Jeanty. You'll hear it next.
They've dubbed it the Michael Myers stance. Very, very scary for opposing defenses facing Raiders star running back Ashton Jeanty out of the backfield. And now the stance is inspiring a Halloween costume, and it's really a Halloween collab ready for the taking. Joining us on behalf of the official grill and bar sponsor of the NFL, Applebee's, we're joined by Ashton Jeanty himself. Ashton, as of taping right now, we're a week away from Halloween. You buying in on that costume idea?
Oh, I mean, yeah, most definitely. I mean, that's the nickname right now, so I got to take it and run with it.
Okay, I want a little more excitement out of you. Come on, Halloween's fun, and this stance is so interesting because you really made it famous in college at Boise State. And I know you've been asked about this a million times, and you said it's more comfortable for you. You read the defenses, but you did change it up in camp. Some people said it was your OC Chip Kelly. Then Kelly came out at OTAs, said, no, it wasn't me at OTAs. It was the running back coach. Either way, a few weeks in, the Michael Myers came back. You put up almost 140 yards, 3 touchdowns in that game. What was the conversation in the process of going back to it?
There was really no conversation. It was a personal decision. I'm not gonna say too much about who may change whatever. That's in the past. But ultimately, I just wanted to go back to my stance. That's where the way I felt comfortable, and we seen what happened after that. So there's nothing really more to talk about.
What's understood doesn't have to be said, I believe, is a saying. And it's tough as a rookie entering the league. We'll talk about the flack that every rookie with high expectations gets. But your team specifically as a franchise has struggled over the last few years. And I know you've been vocal about saying, yes, we've been stuck. We've been losing. Former Raider Derek Carr was very vocal in his response to that. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. He said you have to be one of the culture setters to turn this around. Of course, you're a rookie. That's a lot of pressure. Are you wanting to take that responsibility on?
Yeah, I fully take some of that responsibility. It's not all on me. There's a lot of other people and things that contribute to that. But definitely to be one of the people a part of that, I definitely do. I take pride in being a leader and try to make things better, bring others along, and all I can really continue to do is be an example and control the things that I can control, and I know other people follow and get behind that.
And that's a lot to take. You're just 9 weeks into your first NFL season, just 2 weeks into your career. People are really quick to critique your game as if you weren't a rookie making his first few starts in the NFL, and then you shut him up with a 3 touchdown, almost 140-yard game. I'm curious, though, how much pressure you feel now to live up to all the hype and the expectations you had heading into this season and to have those kind of games that really jump off the paper.
Yeah, I don't really feel no pressure. I've been put into this role, and I'm thankful to be here. But this is what I wanted. I've always dreamed of being a high draft pick, and, playing in the NFL, and now I have the opportunity, and that's just what I look at it as. People are always going to critique me whether I do good or do good. Do good or do bad. It doesn't really matter. So I just kind of stay in my own, cognitive box, about what I think about what I'm doing. And, everybody in the building, that's all that really matters. And, you can't really focus on what everybody else has to say, because if I did, then I would never reach the best version of myself.
There's a lot of noise. You got to just block it out. And there is, of course, a transition going from college to NFL in so many different ways. If we're talking specifically the offense, going from what you saw in college to Chip Kelly's offense with this new team, what has that adjustment been like for you?
Yeah, I've been scoring a little less touchdowns, so it's been tough. Really, it's just a transition. It's a new offense. It's a new team that I'm in, and we have to just continue to get better. And everybody's gonna say what they want to say, critique what they want. But it's simply that we just have to get better in our execution as a team.
I'm going to ask you to dig into that a little bit more with the critique. You guys just brought in a veteran in Tyler Lockett, who has the connection to your quarterback and your coach. So that should certainly help the offense. But overall, you guys have struggled to string together consistent performances. It's not because of lack of talent. I know injuries are a big part of it. Brock Bowers, who was also a stud this season, Jacoby Myers, your left tackle, Colton Miller, also banged up. Aside from injuries, though, if you had to pinpoint one fix for this offense, what would you say it is?
I think we gotta run the ball better, and that starts with me, and that'll help the pass game as well. And I think it's as simple as that. Like I said before, we just gotta execute better. It can be one block away at some points, one catch away, and it'll happen. It's gonna come.
I have faith. You're fun to watch. And of course, you open up the run game. It opens up the passing game. And I'm sure Geno Smith is waiting for that to happen because he is a great veteran. He has been fun to watch throughout his career, but he's certainly struggling. I want to get off the field a little bit here, though. Talking non-football lessons, you have a veteran quarterback. You have another veteran coming in now in Tyler Lockett, some other veterans on the team. What have you learned non-football-wise in your first few weeks into the NFL?
I think most importantly, to make sure everything you have off the field is taken care of. Make sure everything is handled and it's running smoothly, because that will affect your focus and your attention to football. You want everything aligned in a way so that all you have to do is just worry about football.
You have a pregame routine. Did that change up when you went? I'm always so curious from college to NFL because I know everybody has a lot going on in their brain, especially a rookie to your degree in the situation you're in. How do you block out that noise and get ready for a game?
Just being present in the moment, focused on where I'm at. And there's different things that I do, like meditation, which I did in college too. I try to eat the same meal for breakfast, lunch if we have a night game. But I think the same thing is honestly just staying focused on what's ahead. I pray, I read my Bible, I do all the same things. I haven't really switched anything up. I think the warm-up's the warm-up. I do my stretches, I do my footwork. A few little cuts, and then I head inside, put my jersey on and all that stuff, and then get ready to play.
You're ready for a 3-touchdown game. I have to ask before we let you go, if we want to get like Ashton Jeanty, what is the breakfast? What's the breakfast of champ right here?
Yeah, you gotta eat healthy. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be a champ, to eat, so I keep it simple. I do an egg white omelet, with some vegetables in it. No cheese. I don't eat dairy.
No cheese? Dang.
No cheese. I know cheese goes well with eggs, but and then I do some French toast sometimes, but not all the time. Depending on the day. No powdered sugar.
All right.
French toast.
Okay, you are sticking to it. Good for you, man, because I'm tempted by that sugar. We started this block by asking you about Halloween, but I want to get into the real treat that is Applebee's, of course, always an absolute classic. Tell us more about your work with them.
Yeah, Applebee's is, the official grill and bar sponsor of the NFL. So, it's been a great and awesome way to enter the league. And, I've been loving their new ultimate trio. You can mix and match, 3 appetizers and, sauces. So I've been going with crispy pickled fries, boneless wings, and the chicken wonton tacos. And, I like to, add sauce to my food. So I use the Mexi Ranch and the Chipotle lime sauce. So I think you should go tap in and see what we're talking about. You like Applebee's?
Do I like Applebee's? It sounds like you're a big sauce guy. I'm a big sauce girl. And now I'm hungry for some Applebee's. Big sauce guy, also star running back, just entering the league. Cannot wait to see the rest of your career. Ashton, appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Who doesn't love Applebee's? I'm sorry, but crispy pickle fries sound delightful, by the way. And I learned I'm just like Ashton Jeanty because my 2 cups of egg whites with no cheese this morning. Okay, Claudia, here's the thing. You talked to Ashton about culture. And that comes from his comments of, hey, I'm not going to lie, it's a losing football team. And Derek Carr, coming back on his podcast and saying, you got to be the one to change that. I think that's all a little bit misguided from Derek Carr, to be honest. And I say that as somebody that particularly has been a fan of Derek Carr's work with the Raiders. I know that he's a bit polarizing for that fan base, but not for me as a Raiders fan. I think Derek Carr did a really nice job as the quarterback for the Raiders. But the fact is, Derek Carr had 2 winning seasons in 9 years. He was 63-79 as a starter for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this is where Derek Carr, I think, would come back fairly and say, hey, that's not my fault. I went out and played my tail off, and we lost a lot of football games. Right, because no one person fixes a culture. In fact, if one person could fix a losing culture, Max Crosby would have already done that. I don't know how you can have a bigger personality, especially a bigger accountability personality, a bigger sort of guy than Max Crosby is in that locker room. So I don't think it's on Ashton Jeanty. I think Ashton Jeanty is just being refreshingly honest when he says, that they've had a weird culture. And Derek Carr needs to understand, I think to some degree, not to tell Derek Carr what to understand, but I think maybe there's a lack of accepting to the nuance that no one person, when you are a tragically bad team year in and year out, Claudia, no one person in the locker room fixes that. It takes a bunch of people that come in and have a different vibe and a different energy, and they can sort of get the stink of losing off. I don't think if Ashton Jeanty was coming in trying to be the best leader we've ever seen at the running back position in history, and he was having production on the level of Jonathan Taylor, that doesn't mean Ashton Jeanty by himself can fix the culture of what's been a bad football team for the better part of almost 30 years.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's why I said, that's a lot to put on anybody's shoulders, never mind a rookie. I would understand it if he was the quarterback, because that is a position a lot of the times we see the rookies come in and they do take over that leadership role. But he's a running back, like you said, on a team where he's not necessarily getting a bunch of opportunity to have these massive games because they're playing from behind, so you can't really run the ball every single game. And to say that it's on him and that he should be the culture changer, I think honestly is unfair. I didn't say that to him, but thinking about it now, it is unfair because he did get a ton of flack the first few weeks. All the analysts and the scout people saying he's not as explosive as we thought he was. I heard people saying he's going to be a bust after 2 weeks into the season. And so on top of that, to say, yeah, you also have to turn this franchise around that hasn't had any luck over the last few years. It's not fair.
Yeah, I think at some point, if we're being honest, somebody, reports or Chip Kelly, tried to change his stance, which made absolutely no sense. He started slow, but he was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage at a rate that no other running back in the NFL was dealing with because the offensive line has played like trash. And through that entire process, he never came out and said, man, I'm being failed. He just came out and was honest about the fact that, hey, it's going to take a minute to turn things around. And suddenly, the Raiders are trying to screw up Ashton Jeanty desperately. And instead of anybody turning around and giving that credit, you got a former quarterback for the team turning around and say, well, you got to be the one to change the culture. How? If you're murdered if you are taken down the minute you get the ball, you can't fix anything. We'll get to the Ravens and Dolphins coming up next. Big game happening. We'll figure out what's next for Baltimore. The Ravens have perfect attendance. Look at Lamar jogging on out there. That must mean everything is glorious. But in all seriousness, Lamar Jackson is expected to start Thursday night in Miami after missing the last 3 games with a hamstring injury. And just when you thought the Ravens were left for dead, Claudia, maybe they're not. Maybe this is that big moment. They get a Thursday night matchup against the Miami Dolphins team that, I'm just going to be honest, sucks. All right, the Ravens are favored by 7.5. The over-under on this, 50.5. Look, I think Vegas is telling you that Baltimore is going to win this game big. Now, Thursday night football, things get weird. First to admit that, Thursday night football, sometimes things get weird. And the Dolphins are coming off of a unexpected win. So, there is some hope. But let's start with the Baltimore side of this. Now that we have Lamar back, are the Ravens the eventual AFC North champions?
Of course. Vegas knows a thing or two. They're not always right, but there's a reason that they're this, still the favorite despite their record right now. It's them. It's their talent. Of course, you're getting the MVP quarterback back for real this time. You have a top league running back in Henry. You have a top league receiver in Zay Flowers. You have a healthy defense, finally. Offensive line, a little bit of a problem. They're allowing the 3rd highest pressure rate, lots of sacks. But overall, they are the most balanced team far and wide when it comes to this division. And specifically, back to the quarterback situation, we're talking the old man club. 40-year-old Joe Flacco, 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, and then you have a rookie in Dylan Gabriel who has the worst yards per attempt in the league. They're the favorites for a reason. The Steelers' offense is uninspiring. The defense, which is crazy to say, but a Mike Tomlin defense allowing the 3rd most yards a game, they've been awful. The Bengals, I do believe, get a good boost with Joe Flacco. He certainly elevates the offense, but the defense doesn't let you be great. They're allowing the most yards and points a game. They're probably going to be sellers at the deadline. And the Browns are a mess. What's supposed to be a top defense, as we talked about yesterday, just gave up 32 to Drake May and the Patriots, even with 5 sacks. So it's like the one caveat, the one good part for that one team in the division that could be a threat. It doesn't matter because their offense is a mess and Myles Garrett can't do it all on his own. So yes, despite the record, it may sound crazy to people who aren't watching football, but if you're watching football, the Ravens will take it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Baltimore's 2-5, and I'll be stunned if they don't end up with double-digit wins. Look at what's coming up on their schedule, and let's just have a little fun for a second. The Dolphins suck. The Vikings, no quarterback. They suck. The Browns suck. The Jets suck. The Bengals suck. The Steelers suck. The Bengals suck, right? Like, that's their upcoming roster. Like, you just run through it all of a sudden. Then the Patriots and the Packers, 2 tough games, and then they end with the Steelers. So, look, the path to 10 wins is pretty easy for Baltimore if they're even remotely a shell of who they can be. And that's why there's no question in my mind they're going to win the AFC North. I think the only question now is, are they healthy enough by the playoffs that we get a real run out of Baltimore? Like, I'm not willing to count Baltimore out of the AFC conversation yet. If they are capable of getting healthy at all, and this is the big step forward for that, if they get themselves healthy and they're able to make it through the rest of the season with some level of health across the board, they can still contend for a Super Bowl. I just, nothing is off the table for Baltimore right now. That's the stunning part of how bad it was, and that's why everybody wasn't giving up on them yet, Claudia. Like, I understand that you are what your record says you are, but it's never that simple. And the Ravens have a not an excuse, but an explanation for why they've had the season that they've had so far. That's all going to right itself, I think, over the course. They're about to go on a massive run, and our questions in late December are going to be, can the Ravens win the Super Bowl, not can the Ravens win their division?
Which is a big question mark, though, because we know how good Lamar Jackson is. We know how good and deep and talented this roster is, but we haven't seen them push past that certain point. But if we are talking regular season, yeah, of course, they're going to. I think it would be shocking, really, if they didn't get to the double-digit wins after running through that schedule. I didn't realize just how much of a cakewalk it really is. And you can look at that Bears win that we just saw. The Bears were coming off of 4 straight games. They looked good. The Ravens defense was the glaring issue, but we also have to remember they were healthy. They come out, they allow a season low 16 points. They didn't allow a single passing touchdown, under 100 rush yards. And that was a game where we thought Lamar was going to play. They were 7-point favorites to open it. That came crashing down under a field goal because everyone thought, oh, no Lamar? this defense is terrible. The Bears are going to win. They're on a hot streak. The offense has some sort of rhythm. No, the Ravens turned it around without Lamar. The defense is finally healthy and awake because they weren't the first few weeks of the season. And now you drop Lamar Jackson, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, into the equation. It completely changes how defenses are going to play this offense. And the defense, like I said, was the biggest glaring issue for them. And it's a 1-game sample size, but they've turned that around. And the rest of the way, I don't think they'll have much problem looking at who they have to face.
Yeah, and look, I hear the conversation of, okay, so you get to the playoffs and then you lose again, and what the hell was the point? I also think looking at just the context of, oh my God, you were 1-5 with a decimated team that was falling apart, and you scratch and claw yourself back into the playoff conversation. That to me has to be part of the context of how we look at this Ravens season, which is why the danger I think we always face, especially when we talk about Lamar and Josh right now, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and even Joe Burrow, is that it's super easy to look at these great quarterbacks and just say, well, yeah, but how many Super Bowls? But I think with each season and with each time that they've lost in the playoffs, you have to ask yourself, well, who's to blame and what was the cause of this particular? Like, I'm never going to put losing with 12 seconds left on Josh Allen's shoulders, for example. So, like, we have to look at this Ravens team and this Lamar team and understand, in my mind, that wherever they get to, if they get themselves to the playoffs, if we're looking at a home playoff game in January with this Ravens season, the way it has started, that to me does scream wild success, considering everything you were up against early in the year. Just like last year when the Lions lost in the playoffs, I said injuries had to be part of the context of why that season wasn't a waste. I think this year when you look at the Ravens, if they're able to scratch and claw themselves into the playoffs and actually play meaningful football, this season was not a waste to me, no matter how it plays out.
No, of course, but that goes back to the conversation we had yesterday about brownie points and consolation prizes. Like, I think Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are two players specifically who would hear what you just said and said, that's exactly the opposite of what I want. Like, I don't care that we came out and we impressed after a slow season. Those were two teams that were right at the top of the Super Bowl odds. They were expected to come out and dominate and make it to the postseason. Not make it to the postseason, make it through the postseason and win the Super Bowl. And I think Josh Allen has a lot less tools to do that. Again, this Ravens team is so stacked, but this Ravens team has been so stacked. And Lamar Jackson has been a league MVP level, elite type of quarterback, and they still haven't got there. So if I were me and I were Lamar Jackson, which I'm not, I would head into this as a new series, a new season. I'd look at the rest of the schedule and say, okay, we're 0-0 right now. I'm finally the quarterback under center. Our defense is finally healthy. We have an absolute cakewalk rest of the schedule. I don't care what any of the talking heads say. If we don't make it to at least the Super Bowl, then it's a failure of the season. Because if we're saying right now, they can go on and they can win the division, they could win the AFC, they could go on and possibly win the Super Bowl, then yes, in my mind, if I were Lamar Jackson, I would see that as a failure if they don't get to that point. If we're saying right now they can turn it around and get double-digit wins, then that would be a failure to me.
I think all of that depends on who you lose to and how. Like, I just don't think you can call it a failure to lose to Patrick Mahomes on an incredible 12-second drive. Like, I will never call that a failure. While the result might not be what anybody wanted, like, I'll admit and I'll acknowledge the result is not what anyone wanted. I will not ever look at 4 straight Super Bowls for the Buffalo Bills in the 90s as failure, even though they lost 4 straight Super Bowls. Like, I look back at that era in my childhood and say, my God, you went to 4 straight Super Bowls. So I think that for all of this, success in context is going to matter. What about the opposite side of it? Like, we both agree Miami sucks. Like, nothing tonight's going to change the fact that the Dolphins are bad.
Yeah, no, they're terrible, which again is upsetting because you do have some good talent on that team. And they have played in some close games this season, which is why, I debated taking them as underdogs over the last few weeks. And then I realized consistency is not in their vocabulary. They don't have any of that. And the win over Kirk Cousins has nothing to say about them. That Kirk Cousins is washed. The Atlanta drives in that game: punt, 45-yard field goal, 3 and out, end of half, 3 and out, fumble, turnover, touchdown. Like, that's Atlanta's offense. That wasn't so much the Dolphins' defense, because they weren't doing that to anybody else this season. They were allowing 30 points a game before that win, and they're still allowing the 6th most points. So the defense is in a bad spot, which is the perfect bounce back for the Ravens offense with Lamar back. Like, I don't think there's really going to be any rust there. And the offense just can't string together consistent performances. So, no, I'm not too worried about this Miami team. It's really upsetting, and I wouldn't be surprised if they have a new head coach after this one.
The hardest part about Miami is, as an organization, they need to look in the mirror and figure out exactly where they think they're going for the next couple of years, because most of the teams that we talked about yesterday at the bottom of Frank Schwab's rankings are at the bottom of the rankings and have very clear needs where you could turn around and say, okay, the Titans need a new coach and just an all-new roster, right? The Saints, I believe, are going to need a new quarterback, even though Tyler Shuck's about to get his start. The Jets need a quarterback and a bunch of help across the roster, blah, 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 blah. To your point, you look at the Dolphins, and at least the presumption was maybe they had a quarterback. Now it doesn't look like they do, but what do they do with Tua in the meantime, and how do they rebuild their roster? The problem is that what the Dolphins need to do is look in the mirror and have really honest friends around them that will look at them and say, hey, you look fat in that dress. And I don't think that they have those people. So they're looking in the mirror right now, and they're like, no, it's not bad. It's not bad. And their friends are like, you're right, it's not bad. And they keep running it back. And then they look at pictures the next day, and they're like, why didn't anybody tell me I looked fat in that dress? That's who the Miami Dolphins are right now. They need friends that will turn around and say, hey, that dress is not flattering. Like, I want friends that will, when I walk out in the room, they will look at me and be like, dude, that shirt's too tight. You do not look good. You should not go out in that. That's what the Miami Dolphins need. That's the strangest analogy.
No, that's fair. Okay, saying somebody looks fat, the second try was better. You can't tell someone they look fat.
No. Oh, no. Like, I was a fat kid growing up. My mom always told me I looked fat. I was good. You need that sort of tough love. Speaking of tough love, takeaways 1 week into the NBA season coming up next.
What's up, Yahoo Sports Daily? It's Dan Titus, and here's what happened while you were sleeping in the association. OKC stays perfect at 5-0 after defeating the Sacramento Kings 107-101. The Miami Heat still on fire. They scored 144 points to defeat the Charlotte Hornets, and the Sixers needed overtime. But Tyrese Maxey went off for 39 points in a victory over the Washington Wizards. Also, shout out to Adem Bona and Quentin Grimes for pulling that win out. All right, let's get to the NBC on Peacock, where we had a really good doubleheader, starting off with the Milwaukee Bucks and the New York Knicks. The Milwaukee Bucks climbed back from a 12-point deficit at halftime to defeat the New York Knicks 121-111. Giannis Antetokounmpo led the way with 37 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. He even closed out the game with a monstrous coast-to-coast dunk, flexed on the Knicks, really making a statement that he's not going anywhere. Now let's head to the 11 p.m. tip-off in Golden State against the Los Angeles Clippers. Now the Golden State Warriors are coming off a back-to-back. Didn't matter. They took care of business, ending a 7-game skid against the Los Angeles Clippers. This one was a blowout, and really thanks to the defense of the Golden State Warriors. They held the Clippers to 36% shooting, and Jimmy Butler finished with 21 points, surpassing 16,000 points in his career, while Steph Curry added 19 points with 8 assists. The Golden State Warriors limited the Clippers to just 30 points in the second half, and that's why they got the victory 98-79 in the Chase Center. So I wanted to ask you guys about this 11 p.m. Eastern Time tip-off, which clearly isn't ideal for anyone. But what other gripes do you have about the NBA this season? Would love to hear your thoughts. Back to you, Jason and Claudia.
Thanks, Titus, for the late night update, and we'll get to my other big gripe in a second. But this NBA broadcasting 11 p.m. games, like, I get it. I get you're just trying to win the West. Like, you want to win the West Coast and grow your sport on the West Coast only, I guess. But you are just eliminating an entire segment of the country, Claudia. Like, I know it's East Coast bias, but, like, how many great games are we going to miss because I just can't be up until 1:15 a.m. and then do my job the next day every single night to watch the NBA.
People on the West Coast don't work. Just make that game early. They'll be fine. They're going to go to happy hour and watch the game, and us East Coast. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I love people on the West Coast. No, it's absolutely absurd. I would love to go to bed at 9 p.m. every night if I could. I can't. Unfortunately, I picked the wrong career to do that because we get 17-inning baseball games, and they want to do tip-off at 11 p.m. But guess what? I'm just not going to watch the game, which is unfortunate. I'm going to have to watch the highlights the next morning. Nobody wants to do that. We want to watch it in real time. I would say, and I'm sure if we talk to some West Coast people, that they wouldn't mind. They don't care. They're going to watch those games early. It's beautiful out there. They're fine. They have palm trees. They can go to happy hour and watch basketball. It's not fair to us on the East
West Coast, best coast for watching sports. There's no doubt about that. The timing of West Coast, best coast for watching sports is absolutely undefeated. Okay, I got a gripe, though. I have a gripe a week into the season, and it's based in part on what we saw last night. Last night, Giannis Antetokounmpo went in the second half particularly, went off against the Knicks. The Knicks had a big lead, as you heard Titus talk about. Giannis took over in the second half and absolutely whips the snot out of New York. And immediately afterwards, he's even asked about the trade speculation all summer for the Knicks. Like, look, Claudia, I've been full-time in this career since the end of 2016. I think we did our first ever will the Bucks trade Giannis ESPN segment that I was a part of in 2017. I am so tired of us talking about where Giannis is going instead of talking about where he is. 37, 8, and 7 last night for Milwaukee for a guy that has a ring. Like, when have we ever seen a player get a ring and then just universally have the media decide that he needs to play somewhere else and make that the only narrative we are talking about? Like, we watch greatness from Giannis night in and night out, week in and week out, month in and month out. And instead of ever just stopping and appreciating it, all we ever do is decide that he needs to play somewhere else. It's exhausting. If and when there ever comes a time in his career that he plays somewhere else, guess what? We can cover it then. And we can talk about then what it means for that team. And we can talk about then what it means for wherever he ends up. But for right now, man, we don't even talk about the Bucks. We don't talk about Giannis. We don't talk about his greatness. We don't talk about how hard he is to defend. We don't talk about the extra things he brings to his game after a summer off. Look at this Bleacher Report. This is every tweet that Bleacher put out in the last month about Giannis, and not a single one of them has a damn thing to do with actual play on the court. Like, let's just stop the need to place Giannis everywhere else. And for the love of God, appreciate where he is and appreciate the career he's having and the season he's having so far.
Nothing to add. No, I completely agree. It's so frustrating for a player of his level. And you saw that quote before when they asked him, it sounds like the Knicks are a team that you'd be looking at for a trade. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm here playing for my team. I'm putting up 36 points, 16 rebounds, 7 assists a game. And you guys want to come in here and ask if I want to go leave and play for the Knicks? He is the ultimate MVP. I think he's going to go get his third this year. I really do. You look at what he's done for this team up to this point. You take away Damian Lillard, and how does he respond? He becomes the first player in NBA history to put up 60 points, 30 rebounds, and 10 assists through 2 games in the season. Nobody on the team is averaging more than 15 points. He has double the rebounds of anybody on that roster. So you make that big move. You send out Drew Holiday to get Damian Lillard, and they can't even get a 50-win season or a playoff series win. 3 total playoff wins over those 2 seasons. You let him go, and it's not like the team's deflated. No, Giannis injects life into this team. He goes off. He gets those 2 wins. He comes out and saying, I love this team. We're here to win. We're going to go win it all. Like, that is the ultimate team leader. And if I were him, it would be so upsetting that after a game where I absolutely go off, after a night of absolutely going off, people ask me if I want to leave Milwaukee. It's pathetic.
It's also crazy to me because we talk about everything that Milwaukee has tried to do around him that hasn't worked as a reason that Giannis should just go somewhere else. I would love to switch the tone of that conversation just a little bit and instead use that as all the more reason. Man, for everything they've tried, no matter how bad it's gone, Giannis certainly figures out a way to keep them right in the thick of it. Like, there is this moment where there's a turning point for every athlete. Like, right now, everybody's in love with Wemby. We're in love with Wemby on the show. We talk about Wemby all the time on the show because Wemby is absolutely spectacular, and it's fun to watch, and it's great. How long is it going to take before we then decide, well, you know what, Wemby in San Antonio is boring. Let's put Wemby with the Lakers. Let's put Wemby with the Knicks. Like, how much of this is about actually for many outlets, not every outlet, but for many outlets, how much of this is about wanting to see Giannis play somewhere else or just not wanting to have to cover any team other than the Knicks and the Lakers? Like, that's part of the exhausting portion of this. Like, I'm sorry, y'all. Like, if you just want to see Knicks and Lakers talk, then at the end of the day, you're going to be bored by the current NBA structure because the current NBA structure is giving us a bunch of different teams other than those 2 that are relevant and worth having a conversation. Giannis is just a prime example of it. It would make everybody's life easier if he was if he was wearing Lakers uniform or he was wearing a Knicks uniform. It'd make First Take easier, right? Like, just you could just spend all day talking about Giannis and the Knicks, and I get it. Like, I get why that's appealing, but at the end of the day, when you have a champion that has a ring, that also has MVPs, that is still one of the most impossible people to defend in the NBA, and you're trying to throw him on a different team, it's maddening to me. It is the question right now, I think, should be, can Milwaukee find enough to compete in a wide open East? To which I'd say, as long as you have Giannis, the answer to that is yes. And if Milwaukee can compete in a wide open East with Giannis, that becomes an incredible story. Can Giannis, to your point, be an MVP that wills his teams to the Eastern Conference final? Like, that's amazing drama and cinema to me. That's what we're talking about, instead of immediately deciding that what needs to happen is Giannis needs to go somewhere else. The Bucks need to become irrelevant so we don't have to talk about a small market that bores us, and then we can suddenly put him on one of the big brands so everybody can get more ratings.
He says he loves Milwaukee. I don't know. Like, I know it's a small market, but he loves Milwaukee. And the other side of this too is we just talked about how it didn't work out with Dame. How many super teams have we talked about over the last 4 years? You look at the Suns, like now the Lakers, is it really going to work with both Luka and LeBron? You can put as many superstars on one team as you want. That doesn't mean they're going to win you a championship. And I think Giannis knows that. Giannis knows that they can sort of piecemeal together a roster. As long as he's at the center of it, they can, because they've done it before. They can win games. I know they're less talented this season, but it doesn't mean he has to go to a big market team to get another ring. It's what we want selfishly as sports fans. Yes, we want everybody on one team, but that hasn't necessarily worked over the last few years, Jason.
Oh, no, 100%. Oklahoma City was homegrown with the majority of their talent. The Celtics used homegrown talent to get themselves a title. The Nuggets used mostly homegrown talent to get themselves a title. The Warriors used a large group of homegrown talent out of that. They might be the exception of the rule. Before that, the Bucks using homegrown talent. Before that was the Lakers in the bubble, which people don't even really want to count. So, like, look over the course of the last 5 years, most of it is homegrown talent. I'm just saying it at some point, we're going to have to just accept that, like, to me, Oklahoma City, Indiana was a great story in the NBA Finals. And it was a great example of how you build your team. Young, you're patient through the draft, you build for depth, you give yourself enough people. We're seeing it this year for OKC. The number of times OKC has been in and out of, like, down in a game in the fourth quarter already, but they got such bench depth that they're gonna outshoot you in the fourth quarter. They're gonna outscore you. They're gonna win games late. Like, there is a method to winning in the NBA, and that method right now is not, I'm gonna go get Giannis Antetokounmpo and put him on my team, and suddenly we win a championship.
But does he go to the Knicks? I'm just kidding. But, like, that's the problem.
You know
like,
what?
it's our fault. It's our fault. What else are we?
We will rise above. We will rise above. All right, that's it. We're going to college basketball. We got college basketball to preview. It is almost the beginning of the season. Heck, I was at a college basketball game last night, an exhibition, but a college basketball game no less. So coming up, we're going to get into some talk on what we expect from this year. Darren Collison going to join us next. Welcome back to hour number 2 of Yahoo Sports Daily. UCLA men's basketball in the building. That one, Darren Collison, who joins us right now. We are, look, y'all might not realize this, but we are just a few days away from the kickoff or the tip-off of college basketball. In fact, last night in Connecticut, I was at the Michigan State-UConn exhibition match. Who knew? We do preseason college basketball now. Let's go. Darren, we appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning, brother. A lot to get into, but let's start with UCLA, because we just put you up from UCLA. Obviously, you had an incredible career there. What are you expecting from UCLA this season?
You know, I expect a lot from UCLA. You know, you think about, UCLA, they had their struggles last year. They were able to get one of the most important transfer at the point guard position with Donovan Dent, who was one of my favorite players to watch last year when he was at New Mexico State. So I'm excited to watch him and Sky Clark, in the backcourt do their thing. I think they're going to have a really, really good season. I know Mick Cronin's going to have them do a lot of great things on the defensive end, but offensively is where I want to see him make strides. And I think Donovan Dent is going to help that in that area.
Darren, this is a very important question, a very important selfish question, all right? Sean Farnham's a good buddy of mine, also a UCLA guy through and through. And Sean might be in the best shape of his life. Right now, you be Sean Farnham one-on-one. Who's taking it? Who's got it?
Come on, man. It's too early to be asking questions like that. You know the answer to that. He knows the answer to that, man. Come on, man. We don't want to start no beef right now.
That's amazing.
Let's keep it real cool in the morning.
Fitz, you're roping yourself into that equation? Is that what I'm hearing?
I have literally watched Sean Farnham get trash talked into a like tiny hoop office competition for push-ups, right? Like that man is the most competitive man I've ever met in my life. I just wanted Darren to just put it on the record so I could get it to Farnham. Go ahead.
You can be competitive all you want, but Sean has no chance against me, and that's just on the humble side of things. So,
amen.
Yeah,
amen.
You did this. I didn't want to answer that question that way.
Amazing.
My money's on you, Darren. Sometimes the rich remain rich, and that's definitely the case with Florida and head coach Todd Golden. They're coming back with another stacked roster. They're third in the AP poll, second according to Ken Palm. We've seen them run it back before, 2006, 2007. What's the formula this season to get that back-to-back championship?
Well, it starts with their backcourt. I think they have arguably one of the best backcourts in college basketball right now, and Xavier Lee and Boogie Flan. I mean, you think about Xavier Lee. He came from Princeton, and he holds the record for the most triple doubles. So he's not just a guy that's just going to score. He's a guy that's going to play make. He's a guy that's going to do a little bit of everything as far as on the rebounding side too as well. And then Boogie Flan had a terrific season with John Calipari in Arkansas. He comes over and he's going to provide that speed. You look at like what Will and Walter Clayton did last year for Coach Tom, and I think unbelievable. So the way his system is being ran, I think Xavier Lee and Boogie Flan is going to have an unbelievable season within that system, and I'm excited to watch them. I'm hearing a lot of great things, from their start of the season and preseason and how they're coming together, within their training camp and stuff. But I'm very excited to watch those guys play, and I think they're going to have a really good season.
Darren, I mentioned I was at the game last night, Sparty and UConn. Amazing. I can't decide whether solo ball is just that fast or Sparty's that slow on the edge, but man, it was like watching two very different teams. Michigan State was not in the same realm as UConn. Is this about to be a big bounce back year for the Huskies?
I think so. I think you mentioned solo ball. Like solo ball to me has a chance to be, national player of the year this year. He has the experience. He's a guy that plays both ends of the floor. He's going to give you a lot offensively, but defensively, he's going to get up into the ball as much as he wants to. You know what I mean? He's excited on the defensive end. And then you got Alex Carabin. Alex Carabin is a terrific shooter. You're going to see him get a lot of good different sets coming off pin downs and flare screens. So this is a team that you got to watch out for too as well. But solo ball is the real deal.
AJ Nabanza, he's getting all the hype. He's balling as the top recruit, but this is a very talented freshman class. Do you think it's easy enough to say he's the clear number one pick in the end?
Ooh, I mean, obviously Cameron Boozer, Darren Peterson, they're making it very hard. Obviously, who's going to be number one? But if you look at AJ's skill set alone, people ask like, what is a pro? What separates a pro at the college level? Well, go check out BYU games, and you're going to see AJ as that pro. He has every pro tool that you need, whether in terms of, facing up to the basket, fading away, variety of different shots, just in the isolation. He can drive to the basket. I mean, he's that bigger wing that a lot of these scouts love at the next level. And AJ's unbelievable skill set is going to take BYU to another level. I mean, just last week, they played against UNC, who's a top 25 ranked team, and he's out there as a freshman, going in and destroying that team and giving them all types of baskets in different ways. I mean, he can do a lot of different things. You look at what Ace Bailey did last year for Rutgers. I mean, you're going to see similar, skill set from AJ at the wing spot.
You hear some of the wild reports of the amount of NIL money that AJ got, which I love. I love guys going out and get paid, but come on, Darren. Let's have an honest moment. You ever look back and think what might have been, like how much, like the bank account would look a little different today if it's been an NIL world for Derek Collison, right? Like, come on.
Yeah, man, look, I'm not going to lie. I try to factor in what type of NIL money I would have got during that time. And, I probably got to make some calls to see if I can get that back. But, I'm very happy that we're in a space where these college basketball players, in all seriousness, are getting their proper due when it comes to these financial dividends. Yes, it's a lot, but when I played, we never had the opportunity to position ourselves to have these financial benefits, right? And I think the NIL gives these kids, a little bit more freedom. Some of these kids and players, they come from humble beginnings. They don't have the money, even if they're going to college to take care of their family. So they can keep their mind at ease while they have great NIL. So I'm very happy for them, even though I missed out on a lot during my time.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like, I love guys going out and getting the opportunity to earn, especially as much as they bring to the game. But that being said, there has been some controversy with London Johnson, Louisville, the addition, who spent 3 seasons with the G League. Isso came out, was really loud about it. What are your thoughts on eligibility for guys that, are a little older that, decided to go the G League route and now are finding their way back to college basketball?
Man, I seen that too the other day, and I don't like it. I think at some point we have to have a cap on the level of players that are coming into college basketball. College basketball is a fun sport and it's entertaining for all of us to watch. And I think it gets kind of misconstrued and kind of messy a little bit when you're doing stuff like this. I mean, I'm sure, Louisville is just trying to go by the rules and they're trying to do everything they can to help win the game. But when you start doing this, it definitely messes it up. So I hope they just scale it back just a little bit, just to be fair for the other schools as well.
The landscape of the college game in general has changed a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did make a change in that direction as well. I want to go back to the NIL conversation. Between the NIL and the transfer portal over the last 4 years, we've seen a lot of turnover when it comes to those older head coaches. Coach K, Roy Williams. I'm a Syracuse grad, so it sounded crazy when Jim Boeheim was retiring. We knew it was happening, but I know he hated NIL. Jay Wright. We just had Bruce Pearl out of Auburn say goodbye. How much of a part do you think NIL and the transfer portal really plays in those legendary older coaches leaving?
I think it plays a part, a lot, because you figured everybody doesn't have the same advantage as they once did, maybe 10, 15 years ago, right? 10, 15 years ago, it was schools like North Carolina, UCLA, the Dukes, even though the Dukes are still successful right now. They were the schools that had the most success, and they were getting all the players that were going to their schools, right? And you look at a guy like AJ DeBantis that we were just talking about, he goes to BYU. That would have never happened if NIL wasn't in play, right? So now you got schools like BYU having a chance at some of the top players, and they're having a chance to compete, as you saw they did, even though it was an exhibition game, even against a school like North Carolina. So it does change the landscape a little bit. I think it makes it a little bit fair. You got to go out, you got to recruit at a more strategic level. But at the end of the day, look, fair is fair, right? When you can have every level scaled off where every school has an advantage to win games, I think it makes it a much more competitive environment. And I think that's what fans enjoy seeing right now.
There's no doubt. Look, we're seeing that in college football too, right? Where we see new powers basically rise to the top. So
yeah.
Speaking of the top, though, Darren, we've gone this whole interview, this whole conversation. We haven't talked about Purdue at all. Purdue's the number 1 team in the country, right? So who is Purdue and what makes them so good this year?
Well, their experience is the reason what it's going to make them good, right? They had a tough loss against Houston, but if you look at their 3 biggest players, in Lawyer, Kaufman, and Smith, I think those guys are going to help them prevail over a lot of teams this year coming into this year's season. And, one thing you can't coach and you can't make up for is experience. And they have that. Those 3 guys that I named, they've been starting since day 1, right? And Smith, if you haven't got a chance to watch, who I believe is one of the best point guards today in college basketball, you need to get a chance to watch him, because that kid can flat out play. He can flat out pass. He's going to make his teammates better. And I think with those guys and experience, and you add in a couple big time transfers, I think they're going to be just fine. I mean, that game against Houston, they had a chance to win that game, and Houston ended up winning, going up to the national championship game. But, I think they have a chance to make a lot of noise in their conference, and they're going to make a lot of noise in the NCAA tournament itself.
So who are we not paying enough attention to then? Who's on your radar that's not on ours?
Ooh, I'm going to say there's a couple teams out there. One, San Diego State. You know, they got a kid, Miles Bird, who I think is a real underrated player who a lot of people need to start paying attention to. Small forward that can run the floor. He's a two-way player. I love two-way players, by the way, that can play offense and defense at the same time. I think Dutch does a really good job with his program. And, you know, I'm not going to leave out my UCLA Bruins. I can't leave them out. I think they don't get enough credit, you know, for that Donovan Dent transfer. Donovan Dent is an unbelievable player, and I think he's going to excel them to having a successful team or a successful season. So to speak.
Before we let you go, we're going to hold you to it. You need to give us a pick to win it all. And then we've talked about some of your favorite players, it sounds like, but player of the year, who you got?
Okay, so the player of the year, you know, last year I got a lot of flack last year because I was on shows and I was saying the player of the year was Cooper Flag. And they was like, what? He's a freshman. What are you talking about? Like, what are you saying? But you know what? I'm going to go with a freshman again, and I'm going to go with AJ. I love what I'm seeing in AJ, even though they're in the 2 exhibition games. I think his skill set is above a lot of players, even today as a freshman. And I think he's going to help BYU do some really terrific things this year. And I think he has a chance to be player of the year.
And to win it all?
Winning it all.
To win it all, I have a couple picks. You know, I'm struggling between UConn and Purdue. But I'm going to go with Purdue because of experience. I really think Braden Smith is going to have an unbelievable season, and I think you just can't overlook the experience that they have. They've been through a lot. You know, they went to the national, you know, the NCAA just a couple years ago. They know what it takes to get there, but I think Braden Smith is an unbelievable point guard, and I think he's going to make his teammates better. He's going to excel that team to where it needs to be, and I think they're going to be just fine to win it all this year.
I'm just here for the memes of Hurley losing his mind in a national championship game. That's all. I just need that. I need that.
My
gosh. Injected in my veins. He's an interesting dude to watch. Darren, we appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thanks for the great insight. Can't wait for the season. You got to come back and hang out with us again. We appreciate it.
I will. I appreciate you guys. Love the show. You guys are amazing, and just keep doing what you guys are doing.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
No worries.
Oh, I'm going to talk so much trash to Farnham as soon as I possibly can. Coming up, the college football coaching carousel continues. Go round and round. We'll tell you about it next. Pablo points out that UNC hasn't won a football game in 6 weeks. Now, I would point out that I don't think a day goes by that Pablo doesn't have something to say about UNC football. It's become quite a delight to watch. It's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm in the middle of watching mommy and daddy fighting. But either way, they haven't won a football game in 6 weeks. This season has been nothing short of a disappointment, maybe a disaster for North Carolina football. But that being said, Claudia, this week, after 4 straight losses, 2-5 record, this week they get on Syracuse. They get to take on Syracuse on Halloween night. Could be spooky, right? Syracuse isn't any good. Like, could North Carolina get the win? And yeah, I said that knowing full well that you went to Syracuse. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason that Q's at home is only laying 2.5. Unfortunately, it has been scary for them. They have a mess of a quarterback situation with Angeli out for the season, and Fran Brown decided to go with Ricky Collins. I don't think because they have many options, but he's been struggling. He's thrown 8 picks, just 6 touchdowns. He's not getting protected. He's been sacked 9 times, and this team overall is on a 4-game losing streak. All of those by double digits, by the way. They've been outscored 140-50. So as much as I want to back my alma mater, I just simply can't. So what I will do is back and talk about and try to glaze a little bit my former NFL head coach with Bill Belichick. The good news, if we want to give some sort of silver lining to what has been a very disappointing season for UNC, is that they've showed promise, and they showed promise last week. Virginia is a ranked team. They're ranked 16, and UNC took them into overtime and only lost by a point. And even better is that they won in the trenches. They had 6 sacks. They took away the run game. The defense overall didn't allow a second half point. And before that, they only had a 3-point loss to Cal. They definitely need to get out of their own way. The red zone turnovers are a massive issue. Belichick talked about it. But the silver lining is there in the last 2 games, specifically on defense, specifically in the trenches, and the way that Q's has looked. This is a really good bounce back spot for UNC.
Yeah, I think it is too. And 2 things can be true. This thing can be a disaster right now for the Tar Heels, but also like they have the rest of the season to figure out what's next. And that's one thing I think, if there's anything I've learned about our sports society in this football season particularly, is that patience is at an all-time low. And so as a result, everybody immediately wants to rip the Band-Aid off of everything. I think at least over the course of the rest of the season, to be fair and reasonable, we'll get an answer on North Carolina. Like, there is a chance to go on a run. And in the back half of the season, everybody says, hey, you know what? Starting to get it figured out. There's also a chance this thing goes wildly off the rails. They don't win another football game, and Belichick decides, hey, college football isn't for me. I don't think, honestly, as much of an unsexy take as this is for what we do, I don't think we have to have the answer on the future of North Carolina today before we've even hit Halloween. I think if we're being reasonable, this thing has failed so far. It's been an absolute disaster so far. But there's still enough college football left that they can either see if they've got the right people in the room to figure it out, or they can see if they don't have the right people in the room to figure it out. And either way, North Carolina can figure out exactly who they're going to be, and that time won't come until January. Claudia, that's not a sexy take, but I think it's the most reasonable on North Carolina football. That being said, now let's be completely unreasonable. Are you ready for a game? We're going to play a game. Let's go. Going to be start, bench, cut. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to take the 3 names that we all have been talking about. James Franklin, no longer the head coach at Penn State. Brian Kelly, no longer the head coach at LSU. And Billy Napier, no longer the head coach at Florida. And we are going to decide who we would start, who we would bench, and who we would cut. This is our football take on a very popular game. So I'll go with you first. I want give me your logic on who you are starting.
James Franklin. I know everybody's like, what? She doesn't know ball. She's crazy. He's so unclunched. You can't trust him. Blah, blah, blah. I understand that. But he's also a year removed from taking Penn State to the semifinals. They were the number 2 ranked team to start the season. They're still one of the best defenses in the nation. And he helped them get to that point. He gave that program, that team, over 11 seasons and gave them over 100 wins in that stretch. He turned that program around just like we saw him do the same at Vandy. I understand the record's not great against ranked teams. That's fine. I get it. They lost to Oregon, but they also took Oregon into double overtime, and that's the number 6 team in the country. The loss to UCLA, uglier loss to Northwestern. I understand all of that, but if we're talking what other programs think of the current coaches in this cycle, I think programs will see the value in the upside in Franklin. It's not like, again, this is the unsexy pick to say you would start James Franklin because of all the sayings around him and how unclutch he is, but I'm starting James Franklin.
So then who are you benching?
Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly has to sit. Brian Kelly has to sit and think about how bad it is that they had to let him go for $54 million after he talked so much at length about how good this roster was. And they had the number one portal class in the country. They were one of the best rosters in the nation. The program asked donors for 7 figures to bring all of those players in. You had a Heisman favorite quarterback, and you still started 5-3. Now, the reason I'm benching him, I'm certainly not going to cut him, is because he has 300-plus career wins. He's made it to the playoffs. He has, double-digit win seasons at Notre Dame. Probably shouldn't have left Notre Dame, but hindsight's 20/20. It's whatever. He's a good coach, but it's a little concerning that he went to the situation he went to and still ended up leaving with a 5-3 record, and they gave him all of this money to go sit on the couch.
So that means by default that you are then cutting Napier. Is that right?
Yeah. Talk about walking into a good situation and doing absolutely nothing with it. 22-23 in 3 seasons. They had the 12th best roster according to 24/7 Sport heading into this. He was given all of the resources you could imagine to build, and the best he could do while there was an 8-5 record. He was stubborn about giving up the play calling duties, didn't want to hire a real OC. I understand he had an impressive run with Louisiana, but that's not Florida. And the resources and the talent he was given, he did nothing with, so he's out.
Alarmingly, we have created start bench cut lists that are completely different. Okay, completely different.
Yeah,
so
okay, right, let's hear it.
I respect your logic on all of it. It was very good. It was just all wrong. All right, so let's go to who we start with.
Right.
I'm gonna start Brian Kelly. Because Brian Kelly has a better winning percentage than James Franklin. Because Brian Kelly, to your point, absolutely knows how to raise money, which I think is important in college football, and knows how to accumulate the best talent available that he has to him. So when he was, let's say, constricted a little bit with the ability to recruit at Notre Dame, he still got enough talent in to win at Notre Dame. When he had no constrictions, he can win at LSU. Is he winning at enough of a clip for LSU? No, but at many programs, would his winning percentage be electric? Yes. I mean, again, 34-14 at LSU, and we treat it like it was an abject disaster because of the talent he had. But that's talent he brought in. No, he's not a very engaged coach. No, it doesn't sound like he's all that great a dude. I don't know him, but it sounds like what we continually hear on him makes people wonder about whether or not he's even engaged enough. I'm not sure he cares enough about anything to go out, but I'm starting him because at the end of the day, if I just need to get bodies in the room that I think can win football games, something, by the way, Belichick wasn't able to do at North Carolina, I want that. So I'm going to start Brian Kelly for that reason, which means then this is where things get shocking. I'm going to bench Napier because Napier sucked at Florida, and that's fair.
Correct.
Napier did not suck getting to Florida. Maybe he just wasn't ready for what Florida is. Maybe he's better, with the Raging Cajuns type atmosphere. I think there's going to be, especially, we were told by Stephen Godfrey the other day on this show that this year there may be up to as many as 40 job openings in college football this season. Billy Napier is a very good football coach. He may not be a great SEC football coach, but does that mean that he's not a good Big 12 football coach or ACC football coach? I don't know. I think there's still opportunity for Napier to take what he was doing with the Raging Cajuns and build on that a little bit. So while I don't think he's worthy of the Penn State type jobs in the world, I don't think that he gets cut all the way. I cut Franklin. And I cut Franklin because I'm looking at this by default. It was going to come down to Kelly or Franklin. And for me, I cut James Franklin for the exact reason you just mentioned, that, if we're going to be honest, he just struggles in big games. But also, he just feels like there's not always a clear-cut identity to what James Franklin football looks like. Think about over the course of the last couple of years. They bring in a new offensive coordinator from Kansas that's supposed to broaden everything out, make the offense more electric. For 2-3 weeks, it was more electric. Then all of a sudden, it started to shut itself down, and we've seen nothing since. We don't see some great moment of development. So I don't see the same level of talent. Now, you could say that's Penn State versus LSU and the coffers that they have to deal with. But either way, I don't see the same level of talent, and I don't see any more development of that talent than I see with any of the others that we're talking about, and he can't win big football games. So if you take all of those things together, if all he's going to do is win the games he should and lose the games that he should along the way, well, hell, that's pretty replaceable. So I'm going to cut him for now because I can get that return on investment almost anywhere without having to deal with any of the extra drama that could come around having to pay James Franklin. So I start Kelly, bench Napier, I cut Franklin. Have I changed your mind at all with my logic?
Billy Napier doesn't have a single win against a ranked opponent away from home. Not a single win. Not a single win away from home. It's the stigma around James Franklin. That's what it is. That's what everybody always goes back to. He does win games. And like I said, like the fact that they fired him after all the time, I understand those last 2 losses were tragic and they were terrible. But you still kept it close, took it into double overtime against a good Oregon squad. Like maybe the record's not as sexy as people want it to be, but he's still a good coach that can get regular season wins. I mean, we're talking about 3 coaches that were fired, by the way, and like given a lot of money. So this is very difficult to do, to say if we really want to start any of them, because there's a reason they're getting paid, $50 million to go play golf. But that would be mine, is just, I think Billy Napier was, of the 3, the most upsetting with what he was given and what he has done outside of his time with Louisiana.
I could probably buy that. I don't think Franklin would have more success at LSU than Brian Kelly did, because all of those big games, like he doesn't beat good teams in the Big Ten. He'd be playing a lot of good teams in the SEC. Do I believe that James Franklin standing on the sideline at LSU would be better capable of beating Alabama than Brian Kelly was? No, I do not. And so then the only part of my question is, do I believe that Billy Napier could beat Wisconsin if he was the head coach at Penn State? Kind of do. Like, I don't think, like, that's where the hard part, and this sounds like I'm hating on Franklin. I just think that Franklin has been mid in everything that he's done. And yes, that led to a lot of wins with Penn State. But again, if a Penn State fan is going to tell me that James Franklin deserved to be fired because Penn State is such a great job, I would then turn around and say, if that's the case, why couldn't Billy Napier have that same level of success at Happy Valley? It's just the level of competition. They're like, beating the current iteration of Michigan State is not something I think you need a great coach to do if you're Penn State. You shouldn't need a great coach to do. I'm not sure an interim coach couldn't do that. So in my mind, that's part of why I keep floating back to Franklin versus Napier. But you are right. Napier's done nothing to deserve any love outside of the state of Florida. That is a fair point.
And all of those 3 guys who still do have good resumes are without a job. Bill Belichick, though, does he get a mulligan? Does he just get the season regardless and they bring him back? That's what I'm so curious about.
Yeah, no, if Belichick were on this list, he would absolutely be my bench. I just think college football was never for Bill. I think college football.
Well, he would be your cut then. He would be your cut.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sorry, he'd be my cut.
You said bench. Okay.
Yeah, he'd be my cut. Yeah, he'd be my cut. He was never ready for the landscape of what college football is. It's just such a different beast. And part of it is that in the pros, where you pick your players, you get multi-year contracts where you could just sort of work guys into being part of who you are as a culture and as a coach. In college, every single year, you're rebuilding that roster. I don't think that works.
I mean, yeah, but they brought 70 new players in and all new staff. They completely turned around. I said from the start, it was an absolute shocker when he decided to go to college. I never thought it was going to work, but I do think they give him the season because it's Bill Belichick.
Well, I know that we will start. No, Belichick's getting the whole season. There's no way they're not giving him the whole season. We're going to start Mike Golic Jr. We're going to talk to Gojo next. We'll get his thoughts on exactly how confident he is that Notre Dame is actually headed to the college football playoff. We're just going to start a fight right out of the gates.
Question mark?
Who posted it, Gojo or Bellofatto? I should not legally be allowed to purchase crackers of any kind once they're in the house. There is no stopping me. That's just a little preview of what's to come. I'm not going to answer that yet, but we will talk to Mike Golic Jr. joining us now. Claudia, and now Jason Fitz. We're all hanging out. Can't imagine who posted about food. We'll get to it. We're going to play a little game at the end trying to figure out who may have posted what on social media with you two. Absolutely. Mike, I don't know why we asked you to come on. I'm already regretting all that. You can check out Mike Golic Jr., half of Golic and Golic on FanDuel Sports Network, college football analyst for TNT. Welcome to the show, buddy. We're going to get to all of that, but I just want to first get you fired up. Are you really sure Notre Dame's going to the college football playoff? Hear me out. The AP poll right now has them at number 12, which would put them right in the 12 spot, which if the committee had them at 12, they would then get leapt by the highest-ranked Group of 5 team, which is Memphis at 25, Notre Dame out of the playoffs. What say you?
See, this is why I always like Claudia more than you, because you're just immediately trying to start stuff here. You can't even wait 5 minutes. And Correct. You know what? You're also, Jason, I love you. You're many great things. But at times you're a bit of a prisoner in the moment. You're looking at the rankings as they sit right now. I'm playing out the rest of the season where we know so much of college football is going to fix itself. It always does. And the reason I am confident in Notre Dame and their ability to once again set themselves up for a college football playoff trip is because of the way their schedule lines up. Well documented. It was incredibly front-loaded. I think through the first half of the season, they had the 8th or 9th strongest strength of schedule in the country with that trip to Miami, with the home game against Texas A&M. And now that they've come through that on the other side and they're playing their best ball, you look down the back half of the season and there are a lot more winnable games. And one of the subplots of this season that hasn't gotten talked about because of the early losses for Notre Dame is we've seen the step up in maturity that a lot of people were asking for. Marcus Freeman and the staff had losses to Northern Illinois, to Marshall in the early seasons. They'd stubbed their toe on the games that Brian Kelly had eliminated from the diet, right? They were winning the games they were supposed to consistently. Now it seems like Marcus Freeman and the staff in year 4 of this team have continued to hone their preparation to the point where now they come in and they've done a better job taking care of the opponents they're supposed to take to. So I look at the rest of the schedule, I see wins for Notre Dame. And if you just handle your business 9 out of 10 times in this sport, the rest is going to take care of itself, considering they're already in shouting distance in that 12 spot, even if that wouldn't land them inside today.
So you have the schedule on your side, Mike. You also have Jeremiah Love, who's ripping off 230-yard games. Should he be getting more love for Heisman? Do you feel like there's enough hype around him right now?
Don't. And I've seen a number of people start to put out their midseason Heisman list. I'm fortunate enough to be a voter, so I usually can't talk too in depth about it. But I will say is he's been one of the most excellent players in the country, one of the most unique and impactful in my lifetime. He is the most talented running back Notre Dame's had, and they've had a number of NFL running backs traditionally, but he'll end up being the highest drafted running back we've probably ever had in school history. The biggest issue, Claudia, I don't think is with anyone else around the country. There are plenty of talented players in this conversation. The guy in his own backfield, Jadarian Price, the amount of texts that I get every week from somebody who checks out Notre Dame for the first time and sees 24 in the backfield next to 4 and goes, hey, this guy looks like he's ready for Sundays too. Hey, this guy looks like he'd be a number 1 back at 9 out of 10 other programs around the country. And they're right. Notre Dame, I do believe, has the best backfield in college football. And so when you've got another guy taking carries there and doing incredible things with them, when you've also got CJ Carr, who's dominated headlines early in the season, we always say there's only one ball, there's a lot of mouths to feed, whatever sort of euphemism you want to use. But I do think that there's been so much attention paid to other parts of that offense that at times maybe it takes away from the glow that would be there for Jeremiah Love in this kind of conversation if he had fewer guys also performing at a high level around him.
So with that, with everything you just said, I'll go right here. Do you believe that Jeremiah Love is high enough on NFL draft boards that he could break minds when he's drafted this year? Like, could he be a top overall pick to you?
I don't think he's going to go that far just because, we know there's so many quarterback needy teams. We know how that position tends to matriculate up, especially once we get done with the actual football and into the postseason evaluation parts. And while this quarterback class has certainly changed shape relative to what we thought it was going to be before the season, For Jeremiah, I do wonder, hey, is he talented enough in a day and age where we sort of had the pendulum swing back a bit on the running back conversation where, I don't think you're ever going to have a running back go number one overall, even one as talented as him. But, are you back all of a sudden in that, Christian McCaffrey top 5, top 10 range, and maybe that changes things?
I want to bring back the Brian Kelly conversation. I don't know if you heard earlier, we were doing our start bench sit. Brian Kelly now gone from LSU. And I said in hindsight, maybe he should have stayed at Notre Dame. Are Notre Dame fans seeing this and saying, ha, we told you so? What is the reaction to the Brian Kelly firing?
I think you've certainly seen that from a lot of Notre Dame fans who felt scorned by the way it went down, right? It's not an easy thing to stomach when you're a program that's one of the blue bloods that all of a sudden gets treated like a stepping stone to a job that at the time, I think objectively looking at it, even me who played for Notre Dame, has rooted for Notre Dame my whole life, understand and looked at the picture at that juncture and said, well, LSU has traditionally had more of the resources to get people to the national championship more consistent than Notre Dame. The facts just bear that out. And so I think there's a lot of fans that have taken a victory lap in this moment, but I still try and look back on this pretty pragmatically and say, I understood then why I believe Brian Kelly made this decision. And I thought that he had the tools to go and be successful at a place that afforded you so much in terms of talent, lack of in-state competition for resources, the commitment to football at the highest level. And so I think for Notre Dame fans in South Bend, what I would say overall, as someone just looking back on this now, is there's still a lot to be thankful for from what came from that relationship with Brian Kelly. Even if at times people didn't like the way he went about certain things, that was still a coach that ushered in the most consistent era of winning in my Notre Dame lifetime. I played for him for 3 years. I got to see that process up close, and then watching it as an alumni after that and winning 10 games every year and making multiple trips to the college football playoff, it reestablished the foundation for Notre Dame in a way that now Marcus Freeman has been able to build on. And Brian Kelly hired Marcus Freeman, hired Mike Elko, hired Clark Lee. Like he had that eye for so many great coaches. And I think that's why it was so surprising to me that what ultimately I think failed in Baton Rouge was it took too long to make the right hire on defense down there in Blake Baker. And offensively, you just couldn't line that up with when you had the talent to protect your quarterback. And so there was more patience afforded in South Bend because they'd had such a starved history for national titles versus LSU. If you don't win it by year 4, they assume someone else can, and they're going to give them a shot.
Wait, so do you believe that Brian Kelly right now could go somewhere and win a national championship in the current college football environment?
That I don't know. Like at this point, that's eluded Brian, and so he's going to have to prove that until further notice. What I do know, as we have sit with an already bevy of options for college football vacancies at the head coaching spot across the country of programs that also haven't been to national championships but are looking to get more reset, Brian Kelly's still going to be coaching at one of these programs if he wants to, and he's still a guy that can come in and reset and raise your floor. We'll talk about the ceiling and we'll have to figure that out. But if you're one of these programs right now sitting here on the market that's just been trying to get back to, hey, can we be competitive year in and year out? Brian Kelly's shown you he could do that. I mean, came in and almost immediately got to the SEC championship, did have a Heisman Trophy winner at LSU. So again, personality-wise, I understand he's not going to be for everyone, and I don't begrudge you that. But I also think there's no ignoring the track record that the guy can coach, even if it didn't work out here, and get him over that hump that's plagued him for most of his career now.
He might not be the most lovable guy. Freeman is, though. So what did it say to you that it took like 3 seconds for Marcus Freeman to shut down every single job opening that people wanted to throw at him?
Yeah, it's a relief because I wouldn't have blamed Marcus if he left this kind of nebulous to use it as a leverage point, not even to get more money out of the contract extension. We know Notre Dame signed him to a contract extension because they're a private school. We don't know all the details of total salary and things like that, but you'd imagine he's compensated at or near the highest level in college football. And so he could have held out for even more for, hey, NIL, the pool of money they use to play assistants, all that stuff. And so to have this already coming out, I do think one indicates Marcus Freeman wants to keep the main thing the main thing. This is a guy that is about ball, that loves the team that he's coaching, and knows they still have plenty they can accomplish this season, knows that a national championship run again isn't off the table for them. And so it wants to continue to eliminate distractions for this team. And I also think it's a recognition and an acknowledgement that Notre Dame, since Marcus has taken over and towards the end of the Brian Kelly era, has continued to show they are serious about playing ball in this era. Maybe they won't be able to spend as much as a Texas Tech or an Ohio State when it comes to NIL, but it sounds like they're playing ball in that field to a level that I wasn't sure they were going to. They've given Marcus the resources he needs to go out and be successful thus far. And with the inroads they've made in recruiting, especially lately, being able to sway guys with the success that they've had on the field, I think there's an understanding that, hey, I understand that people can throw a lot of money at you, but to recreate the environment that Marcus has curated here at a place that he feels comfortable, I think he sees the future here, and I think Notre Dame does as well, and the investment has shown that.
Yeah, and he's instilled a winning culture and getting to the playoffs. So Notre Dame, certainly a team we were talking about before the season even started. I'm curious, though, Mike, for a guy who really is on the pulse of college football, is there a team that everybody else, all the talking heads, aren't talking enough about at this point?
Well, I put this on everyone's radar, and I saw them start to get a little bit of notice here this last week. But as we know, the 5 highest-ranked conference champions make it to the college football playoff. That's still, while we won't be the 1 through 4 seeds if you're the Power 4 conference champions, you're going to be in the dance, and so you have that opportunity. And we always look for who outside of the top 12, who outside of those initial rankings can be a team involved. Don't sleep on Houston right now. Willie Fritz and the Cougs, 7-1 at this point, coming off a win this last week. And when you look at their road to the Big 12 championship right now, down back towards the back end of the season, they face most of the bottom half of the Big 12, while the teams above them, BYU, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, are all going to play some parts of each other down the stretch. BYU and Cincinnati right now, both undefeated in conference, both, if the season ended today, would be playing in the Big 12 championship, and both play each other in a couple of weeks. So I think that this conference, which always is full of parity, tons of teams that can compete, going down the stretch of the season, if you're looking at 1 or 2 teams that get knocked off, Houston's schedule works out really well where they could earn that trip to Arlington to go play in the Big 12 championship. And once you're there, you've got a shot. So Houston, I believe, 22 in the AP poll this week. But with their path to the Big 12 looking the way it is right now, by no means out of the conversation.
All right, let's get to the game. The game is Gojo or Bellofatto. That's how we're doing it. Here's how it's played. We have X posts from each of you. I had to guess which one it came from. I think I'm going to nail this. I think this is going to be absolutely – we'll put it up. I'll guess. You guys tell me if I'm right. Let's see the first post that comes up on this screen, and they're gonna put it up for us. Just give it a second, a little patience. The guys are working on it back.
This anticipation is killing me,
I know.
Mike.
The anticipation is absolutely killing me.
I'm so
scared. Okay, here we go. League on notice. Wow. Okay. This one's actually kind of tough and a little bit of shaming here. To I was told earlier I can't call somebody fat. Especially not an athlete. I think this one came from Gojo. I think Claudia wouldn't body shame him. Came from Gojo.
First of all,
wow.
First of all, it's not body shaming. And some dude replied on Twitter the same thing. I'm like, it's not body shaming. That's a boss picture of my guy with a cigar in his mouth after winning. Like, why do people think that's your problem, Fitzy, and everybody else who automatically goes there? Thank you, Coach.
It is. It's a Rorschach test for your own insecurities. That's exactly what that is. I'm with Claudia on that. See, there's nothing wrong. That's what the ideal male form looks like. If you can't handle that, that's a you problem.
Mike, you weren't here earlier when I said everybody needs a friend that will walk in and be like, "Hey, that dress makes you look fat." And Claudia said, "No, you shouldn't tell somebody they look fat." So I'm just saying.
No.
My Chemical Romance. That's definitely that's Claudia. That's Claudia. My Chemical Romance.
You're terrible at this game.
You are so bad at this game.
Damn it.
Do you even know us? Are we even friends?
Amazing tweet, by the way. Love that one.
That is well done. Let's pull the next one up. I'm 0 for 2, so I'm about to go on a run, though. All right, like things, start a little slow. The first drive was a little sloppy. Scripted plays not going as well as I wanted them to go, but so far we're gonna get there. We're gonna get to the next one. And I look, I think I know that I'm willing to place a wager that I can get the next one. The next one, top 5 after the first listen. That's definitely Gojo. That is definitely, if it's Taylor Swift and it's the Life of a Showgirl, that's Gojo. I'm on a heater now. I'm on a heater right now.
That was the easiest layup bunny shot in the world. I think I have one total Taylor Swift song on my whole entire iPod. I almost just call it like in my Spotify. I have one song, and I've tried.
iPod?
I'm more worried about you having an iPod right now. I'm picturing you with the one with the wheel.
Someone bring the sticky stuff to Foxborough is the next one. That's Claudia because it's Foxborough and that's Boston.
Yeah,
and we couldn't keep a ball to save our lives. Fumbles.
I'm just gonna shimmy.
Vince, you're getting the easy ones. You're Taylor Swift and the Patriots. Like, come on.
Okay, but still. Okay, fine. Next one, soft as hell at NFL. That's Claudia.
Ooh.
I do constantly say that the NFL is soft as hell because they are,
That's Claudia?
It's just because you added the league. I was like, I don't know if I've ever added the NFL and been so bold.
Gojo's like, I'm trying to keep my job.
Than I do.
I'm sorry. I'm
I don't know. I gotta take that down.
And then this one says, who posted, this is my body, which will be given up for you. And that's Pop-Tarts. That's definitely Gojo. There's not even a question about it. This is definitely Gojo. And to wrap all the way back to the top, tell me I'm wrong. When we opened this and we did the crackers, no crackers in the house, that's got to be Gojo also, right? I'm just taking a victory lap. The crackers in the house was Gojo?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. All right, and I shouldn't be, guys. Let me tell you, anytime I know where they are, I've got to have them hidden from me because I can't save myself from myself.
I feel that. That's why I just don't buy them because, game over.
Yeah, that's a smart. Yeah, but Mike and I worked together with Cheez-It many years ago, and they gave him so many Cheez-Its that he had a whole garage full of them. This is a true story. And I took some of those to my garage, which to speak to the fact that I try not to eat that stuff in my life. I finally had to give some of those boxes up because they're like 7 years old. The other day, like they're way past the expiration date. They hold incredibly
well. They age like
do
wine.
They?
I was gonna say they're probably fine. Unfortunately, they're so processed. That is not real cheese. Well, cheese ages well either way. Yeah.
It speaks to my uncomfortable usage of edibles that I'm sitting there. I'm like, I don't know. Should I? They're only 7 years past the date. But no, I managed to resist. Mike, thanks for hanging out with us, buddy. Check him out on Golic every single afternoon, Monday through Friday. We appreciate that. We appreciate you hanging out with us, and we appreciate your great Twitter work. But Life of a Showgirl, now that you've had more than one listen, are you pro Life of a Showgirl or anti Life of a Showgirl?
Definitely pro. I would say Opalite, probably the biggest mover up that list. Although Fate of Ophelia with the music video, Travis Kelce doing the dance when he scored a touchdown this last week, because the refs weren't haters. The week after the album came out, he caught a touchdown and immediately had to go argue a flag. I thought he was going to bust it out then. So no, electric stuff. She's always doing her thing. And so is Travis. You love.
I just love – I find anybody that loves you the way Mike Golic Jr. loves Taylor Swift. That's all we can ask for. Gojo, appreciate your time, buddy. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
All right. We got a Game 5 tonight, and the odds say that if you don't win it, you might as well never play baseball again. We'll tell you about it coming up. Game 5 tonight of the World Series, the always pivotal Game 5. The series is tied at 2 each. Claudia, this just feels like, I said it earlier, I'll say it again, this feels like about as must-win as you can get for the Dodgers to me to not want to have to go back to Toronto. This matchup tonight should be absolutely electric, as every matchup has been in this series.
Yeah, and we saw this Blake Snell Savage matchup in Game 1, and I was all over the Dodgers. I took Dodgers first 5. I thought Blake Snell would just clean him up, and he really struggled. He came into that game with a .86 ERA. He had a sub-1 ERA heading into it, and he just got shelled. He gave up 5 earned on 8 hits. He only walked 3, which was good, but just 4 strikeouts, and his strikeout stuff has been nasty. So he couldn't locate like we've seen him. He really struggled in that one. I do think he'll bounce back, or maybe he doesn't, Fitzy, and maybe Toronto's lineup is just better than we thought. They are one of the best against lefties. We saw that in the regular season. I just thought the way he had been pitching, that he would be okay, and you're going up against a rookie. Like, Savage is just making his 8th major league start. That was a ton of pressure for him heading into Game 1, but he still came through. So big bounce back for Blake Snell. I do think he will, and I think the Dodgers bats will be a little bit hotter. They're a heavy, $2 favorite on this one, so odds makers certainly protecting themselves there. They think Blake Snell will bounce back, and I think he will too. I think.
Look, the part with Savage that makes me at least curious to see tonight. As you mentioned, he's a rookie. He's 22 years old. It's his fifth start this October. His 8th start in the bigs ever, right? And so why is that significant? Well, I thought this was pretty wild to me that every one of his postseason starts has been at home. In fact, in his entire career, he's only started on the road twice in his entire career. And one of those was in Tampa in a minor league stadium. So he's really only played 4 innings in his entire career so far in a Major League Baseball stadium on the road. And now he's in Game 5 of the World Series in LA. Like, as much as we feel like everything can be so known in sports, and we talk so much about analysis of what we can expect, I don't think any of us have any idea how a 22-year-old that's pitched a total of 4 road innings in his entire career in a Major League Baseball stadium is going to react to Game 5 of the World Series. Now, maybe it's one of those things where, pressure, cold diamonds, like, great, maybe it's that. Or maybe it's way too much and there's just a little bit of loss of control. And if there's a little bit of loss of control through adrenaline, all of a sudden the bats get on fire, and now all of a sudden we have a much different Game 5. So I just think that the hardest part of this, the human element in me, just wants to look at a 22-year-old that's a rookie, that's in his 8th start and the 5th in the month of October, that's played 4 road innings in a Major League Baseball stadium, and say, you want him to do what? Like, this just feels like a crazy ask.
100%. It is a very difficult ask. I don't know how long he'll go out there, as outs is only set at 12.5, and you have those rested arms now after last night. He himself, though, I think has been, if you want to look at splits, which, yes, you talk about the home road, that's certainly important. We have such a small sample size, so it's difficult to do. But if you look at him overall and in the minors, he's struggled more actually against right-handed hitters than lefties. And this is such a lefty-heavy, talented lineup with the Dodgers. Like, if you want to look at one split that's in his favor, you could look at that. His strikeout stuff has actually been better than Snell's. It's been nasty, over 34%. Runs, I understand, are the important one, and his ERA is over 4, and you have all of the pressure in general of not only starting a Major League Baseball game in the postseason, but especially against this lineup. Yes, it's a ton of pressure on Savage, but I think from what we've seen from him so far, he's been all right. And I just don't know how long we'll see him out there for. I think we'll definitely get some more length out of Snell. So I think it says a lot to see the Dodgers as a $2 favorite. And this total did open 7.5. We're seeing a few 8s out there. I tend to want to lean over that. I think Blake Snell bounces back, but like I said, they hit him really well in that first game. And if maybe you or folks out there don't have a ton of faith in Savage with it just being his 5th overall postseason, 8th overall start, then maybe we just want runs here. Maybe let's stop trying to pick sides, people. Let's just ask for runs in this game. That's certainly what I'm looking for, Fitzy.
I think, though, part of the reason that people lean the Dodgers in this is because we do love proof of concept. And we love the concept of been there, done that, right? And so when you think just about what we saw a year ago right now. And we saw the Dodgers absolutely in a series when they needed big hits. They found a way to get big hits. They got the World Series championship. Right now, they're right back in that same situation. We just don't have that proof of concept yet from Toronto. And I think that's fair. Like, everybody wants to make it about big conversations about doubters. Claudia, I don't think it's necessarily about doubters. I just think it's that, like, Vlad hasn't had that World Series moment yet that Freddie Freeman has. And when he does have that, then he'll get credit for it. But until then, if you're talking about a tight matchup right down to the wire, it's hard not to lean Dodgers simply because we've seen them do it before.
Yeah, and everybody just has faith in this team. After Toronto got that win, the Dodgers are still a massive favorite. Everyone's still talking about the Dodgers. Everybody still goes back to what we said from the very start. Dodgers are the deepest team in baseball, and they're likely going to run it back.
So you think Dodgers tonight and Dodgers win the series? Is that your prediction?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I have to go Dodgers. Like, I go Dodgers win tonight, and that's the only way they can win the series. So I think the Dodgers win tonight, and they also win the series. That being said, I didn't realize the series was going to be this incredible. So we'll wait and see how it plays out. We'll be back right here tomorrow. Claudia, thanks for hanging out with me the last couple of days. Appreciate you. Come back. See us tomorrow, 9 a.m. We'll be here.